So a year and a half ago, when I started collecting Hot Toys figures, I was in it primarily for the Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff, Iron Man, the Avengers, etc. And then Hot Toys went and secured the Star Wars license. I grew up loving Star Wars, so this was very hard for me to resist, so I decided not to. This week we're going to be taking a look at my first Hot Toys Star Wars figures, the Han Solo and Chewbacca figure set. So here we have the box. This is MMS263, the Han Solo and Chewbacca collectible figure set. What I thought was interesting when I first saw this was that that the photo on the front is actually of the Han Solo prototype. Some of the very first images that we saw of this figure. However, the face sculpt was actually changed before release, and you'll see that in the figure. Otherwise, it's a very straightforward Hot Toys box. Nothing on the sides, and on the back, just a bunch of copyright information, the title again, etc. When you open up the box, you get this really nice slipcover that shows, again, the figures, still the prototype Han Solo, but you can see the figures in various poses here. The Millennium Falcon and some X-Wings superimposed onto a galaxy background. You can see the outline of the Millennium Falcon there. It's pretty cool. Pull this down, and here's the clamshell that holds the figures. Chewbacca here, Han Solo there. All of the various accessories. This clamshell is like 3 trays deep because they come with a lot of stuff. I've taken the figures out already, and I'll explain why in a moment. So let's go ahead and take a look at the figures and the accessories that they come with. And here we have the figures themselves, the Wookiee and the Scoundrel. I unboxed these figures prior to recording the video, primarily so that I could mess around with Chewbacca a little bit. Chewbacca is completely covered in rooted hair, and it came matted down with some sort of glue or other product. So I had to do quite a bit of work in terms of combing that out and styling him a little bit, if you can believe it, to get him looking like he does in the first Star Wars movie. But with that said, once these figures are set up, I think that they look fantastic. We'll take a closer look at the figures in just a moment, but first let's take a look at all of the accessories that they came with. Alright, so apart from the accessories that you just saw on the figures, Han's pistol and Chewie's bowcaster and bandolier, they do come with quite a number of other things. So Chewbacca comes with 2 sets of hands, one for holding the bowcaster and then a pair of relaxed hands. Han comes with 2 sets of ungloved hands and then an entire arrangement of gloved hands. You have 2 relaxed hands, a set of hands for holding a rifle, like this. And then you have these 2 hands, which I'm guessing are for gripping the controls of the Millennium Falcon. Now, Hot Toys does have a 1/6 scale replica Millennium Falcon cockpit in development, so I think that that's where you would use these when Han is actually sitting in the pilot's seat. Speaking of which, the collectible set does come with 2 of these white communication headsets, like they wore in A New Hope. Han actually comes with, believe it or not, a second hairpiece that clips on, and you can see it has a groove here for the headpiece to sit in. Now, unless you actually have the Millennium Falcon cockpit, I think it looks a little weird to display Han just walking around with a headset on, so this is probably not something I'm going to use right now. The set comes with a Stormtrooper utility belt and a Stormtrooper blaster, in case you want to display Han as we saw him on the Death Star after they changed out of the Stormtrooper uniforms and he just kept the belt and the blaster. It's got a nice little leather holster here. The blaster itself is articulated. You can pull the stock back, which is pretty nice. And again, this is to make use of those rifle holding hands. And finally, the set includes this monstrous Imperial blaster rifle, which I believe we briefly saw Chewie get a hold of in the detention center. So again, you can have Chewie wielding this instead of his bowcaster if that's your preference. The tripod portion here is articulated. What I believe is the ammo cover here appears to have a hinge on it, so it almost looks like you can open it, but I don't believe that's the case, so I don't recommend forcing it. Overall, a lot of very cool detail on the paint on this rifle, and while I am partial to Chewie's bowcaster, it's nice to have this as an option. Alright, so let's take a closer look at the Han Solo figure. I've posed him here momentarily next to the box art, just so you can see the actual in-hand sculpt versus the picture of what was the original prototype. There's not a huge difference, but there are differences, and I feel that the in-hand sculpt is actually a better likeness of Harrison Ford. Not perfect, but it's pretty damn close. So close that nobody's ever going to mistake this for a different character, and I'm really happy with it. So we have Han Solo here, represented in his wardrobe from Episode 4, A New Hope. So far, Hot Toys has only released figures from A New Hope. They have not moved on to Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi. They do have some Force Awakens figures up for pre-order currently, and they have not mentioned any plans about doing any of the prequel characters, but I don't think anybody's too heartbroken about that. So, you know, if you're a Star Wars fan, this outfit is pretty iconic, and I think it's reproduced here really well. You have, you know, his undershirt and his black vest. We have a lot of great detail down here in Han's gun belt and holster. The holster is functional. This little loop unsnaps, so you can put the gun in there if you want. But again, it looks great. You got the red stripes running down the side of his pants. There is one small issue with the boots here, because Han is on long foot pegs, which basically means there's like a gap of space between the foot mold, or in this case the boot, and the end of the actual ankle. It causes a little bit of wrinkling in the boot here. So at some point I'll probably stuff that with a little bit of bubble wrap or other fabric just to bulk that out a little bit. But really it's not too noticeable. Everything just looks really well tailored. And then of course we have the Hot Toys Star Wars figure base with the movie logo there and the figure name. It's not a very restrictive outfit, so you can get a lot of articulation from the underlying true type body. You have bicep swivel, obviously the elbows. The elbows on this figure are a little bit tight, which is fine. I'd rather have tighter joints than looser ones, so it holds the position. But again, a little bit of ab crunch here. Like I said, even with the boots, you know, because it's not a solid molded boot like the Hawkeye was, we do have some ankle pivot, which helps for achieving some better posing. Overall, I think it's just a fantastic representation of the character. And then we move on to good old Chewbacca here. I heard it said that Hot Toys mentioned that Chewbacca is the most difficult figure that they've ever done. And frankly, I'll believe it, because head to toe, he is just rooted hair. You would think it would be relatively simple, but I'm not sure that there's ever been a 1/6 scale Chewbacca figure that actually did fur. At least not to this quality. So there are some nitpicks to be made, you know, about the likeness. I'm not one that's going to get super specific about these figures. I'm happy with a good solid representation of these characters that I grew up loving. But some people have pointed out that the mustache that's typically visible in Chewie's fur isn't really here. And again, some of the proportion and that, but it's not really something that I notice so much. And so I'm a huge fan of this figure. The detail on the bowcaster is just fantastic. You have obviously a nylon strap here. His pouch, it looks great. This is leather. It's got little buckles here, and then the bandolier. All of these ammo clips are removable. Some of them are a little crooked, but that's okay. You can straighten them out if you really wanted to get OCD about it. But like I said earlier in the video, if you pick up Chewbacca, definitely plan to take some time futzing with his hair right out of the box, because it does take a little bit of effort to get him looking pretty decent. Just because his hair will be all matted down and kind of crusty, and definitely you want to pull it away from his face a little bit, because you don't want it kind of glued right to the sculpt, because then it just looks bizarre. His snout is like way too big. So I'm not going to do too much messing around with this figure on camera, just because I do have him in a pose that I like, and I have the hair mostly under control. But because there is no actual outfit to speak of, you pretty much have the full range of motion on his true type figure. I'm fairly certain you can get him into pretty much any pose you'd be interested in, just because there's no real restriction with tight clothing or leather or boots or anything like that. It's just rooted hair on top of the base figure. He of course comes with his Hot Toys Star Wars base with his name on it. I believe the bases for the Rebel figures are gray and white, whereas for the Imperial figures it's gray and red, with red underneath the grate there. Alright, so there we have it, my first Star Wars figures from Hot Toys, and we're definitely off to a good start here. I'm pretty impressed. They have a lot of shelf presence, the likeness is fantastic, and looking at them just brings back a lot of memories growing up watching these films. You can see I posed Han into a sort of a Han shot first gunslinger pose here. Again, Chewie I'm not going to mess with, just because the hair, I feel like once you get it where you want it, like you just don't want to mess with it too much. But you'll definitely have a lot of options, and then certainly if you were to pick up the Millennium Falcon cockpit down the line, I think they look pretty cool. seated at the bridge of their ship. These are great iconic characters. Chewbacca didn't really change his look too much in between the films. His hairstyle changed a little bit. Some of his hair got a little bit messy in the later films. So I'm not really sure if we should expect Hot Toys to make a new Chewbacca figure. But I think it's a pretty safe bet that we'll see Han from at least Empire Strikes Back, if not Return of the Jedi. So if you like those looks better, maybe hold out for one of those figures. But as far as the A New Hope look goes, this is a great representation of that. So I hope you enjoyed the review, and thanks for watching.